Well, good news. The Haunting of Bly Manor, much better than The Turning. From creator Mike Flanagan, Bly Manor features some of the same cast as Haunting of Hill House, but playing different characters and the stories aren't connected. The Haunting of Hill House I love and would have easily given an A-. The Haunting of Bly Manor I didn't like quite as much, but still, again, much better than The Turning. It's a 9-episode series, and it did take it a little while to finally start clicking with me. The series is less scary and begins more like a heavy gothic soap opera, one where it's not that I was disliking it, but none of the drama at first was really roping me in. It certainly doesn't set out to just repeat Hill House. It wants to do its own thing with its own tone and form of storytelling. But while Hill House I could easily get through fast with excitement to get to the next episode, in this series, yeah, I watched it in one sitting, but really would have had no problem if I had to go off and do something else between episodes. Hill House was perfectly cast between the younger characters and the older counterparts. Here, Oliver Jackson-Cohen and Victoria Pedretti are both great in this, but there's a couple of returning cast members that feel slightly miscast, although that did lead to some enjoyment. Henry Thomas's accent is so over-the-top posh that for a while, he was one of the most entertaining things about the show. The story is being told to us by Carla Gugino telling it to a group of people. So you have some narration that pops up throughout it, where I kept thinking, man, this is a really long story she's telling these people. When the narration would come in with some insignificant detail, I kept picturing people checking their watches. Like it's How I Met Your Mother, where Dad would be like, and then kids, let me tell you about how the gang and I started searching for the best burger in New York. At the halfway point, it kept jumping around so much for a brief period that I couldn't tell you what was happening. But I wasn't really frustrated. It was more like, okay, if it starts to make sense, fine, and if it doesn't, also fine. But then, somewhere a little after that, when the pieces started falling into place, and you really began to get a sense of the bigger picture here, I did start getting into it a lot more. When it became very focused on the ghosts and their backstories and what led them to the situation that they're in, also in dealing with common themes like regret and past memories, the characters became a lot more likable to me, and the story far more engrossing, especially when a very bittersweet love story comes into play. The season takes place in 1987, and like the previous season with its 1992 scenes, it does a great job of making it feel like it's just genuinely set in those years, as opposed to turning into decade porn. If there's something this series does better than Hill House in its last part got so monologue heavy it became exhausting, whereas this really didn't run into that problem. The last couple of parts here run into some padding issues, and I'm not 100% certain of the rules here, but by the end of it, I left very satisfied. It's not great, I wish it had sucked me in a lot sooner than it did, and I can't say I was scared all that much, but it's a good B-. It didn't reach the heights of how truly great Hill House got for me, but it was a good way to spend my day. We'll have reviews coming up for the religious parody movie Faith-Based, so until then, subscribe to us today and follow us on Twitter at The Cinema Snob. See you next time.